Yes, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Somebody was telling me in America, often people who are not devotees and who are not religious, when we use this word surrender, it horrifies people because they link surrender with loss of independence. In fact, I went to America and some devotees were saying that you should not use the word surrender in your lecture. I told, well, the message of Bhagavad Gita is surrender to Krishna, but they said, no, don't use the word surrender. You can use the word love Krishna and make friendship with him, and that's good. So why they were saying this? Because in the West, surrender is linked to exploitation, to actually victimization, or maybe slavery, and absolute loss of independence. That's the absolute loss of liberty. That's what surrender is word used for. Surrender has a bad connotation in the West. Tyrants and terrorists, they use this word surrender. So, is this word bad? Well, you have to understand, the word in itself is not bad. The concept in itself is never bad. It is made to look bad in a society. For example, I think 100, 200 years back, the word, like for example, toilet. Well, it was used in Europe. They still called toilet. But over the time, that word had a bad connotation and people didn't like it. So in America, they use restroom instead of toilet, which is basically called as euphemism. They use good words because the words become bad. For example, or another example, politics. Aristotle and Socrates and Plato, they use this word politics in a very good sense, that policies are required to rule a country and a state. And when you use policies to rule a country or a state, that's called politics. But when we hear the word politics now, automatically it's linked to some bad manipulation. And we can't get rid of this meaning when we use the word politics. So, but that was not always the case. Similarly, the word surrender was not always bad. If you read all the scriptures, whether Christianity, Islam, or Vedic scriptures, the word surrender is all over the place. Even Islam in itself means surrender. The word Islam means in English, literally it means surrender. If you see Bible, the word surrender is used. Not that often, but it's used, at least in Old Testament. And if you see Vedas and Gita, surrender is a central concept. In Sanskrit, it is called as Sharanagati or Prapatti. So it was a good word. Why? Because obviously one of the Sri Vaishnavacharya, Ramanacharya, he makes a point about this, the very topic I'm talking about. That surrender means loss of independence and liberty. He makes a point. Yes, in certain sense, the word surrender is not good when it is linked to this material world, to the people in this material world. If you surrender to anybody in this world, there are high chances that he will exploit you. He or she will exploit you. And when this word is used in context of God, then the word surrender, it's not a bad word. It's a very good word, because God is a perfect person, perfect master. He never exploits, he never cheats, and if we surrender to him, he will help us. Anyway, I mean to say, when it's connected to God, it's a good thing to surrender to God. But even in this material world, around 100 years back, 150 years back, this was a good way. I mean to say, people used to surrender with love. A lover used to surrender to the beloved, and that was an expression of love. I surrender my being unto you. In Bible, Christ said, I surrender my spirit unto you, my Lord. So this word was not exactly a bad word. even in the context of material world and material people. The mood depends what the mood is all about. And if that is why nowadays we use an adjective to the word surrender, that is loving surrender. Because people think surrender, people have bad connotations about the word surrender, so we write loving surrender, and then it makes sense. Yeah, a beloved surrenders her body to her lover. That's surrender. You can use some other word, but the sense has to be correct. You can use the word restroom, but if your sense is bad, it's a bad word. That's the whole point there. So the point is another point. Now people say surrender means loss of independence. Now what about that? Even if you surrender to God, you lose your independence, because you have to follow the laws of God. You have to control your desires and fulfill the will of God. So you're losing your independence, but that's not the case, because Bhagavad Gita says the rules and regulations for freedom. That's the idea. Krishna says rules and regulations for freedom. Rules and regulations makes you more free and not makes you bound. That's a big concept. If you surrender to somebody, it doesn't mean that you're losing your independence. If you surrender to somebody, that might also mean that you are becoming more independent, or your independence is guided by a wisdom. It's not always loss of independence. If you join a corporate, or if you make a business venture, if you start a business venture or startup, you always have some rules by which your 3-4 people who have started a business venture, they should how to work, when to work. There are some ethical rules, and there are some working rules. Everybody has that, otherwise the system doesn't work. And when you surrender to those rules, and when you apply those rules and go by those rules, then what happens is you grow. And if you don't follow the rules, everything crashes. It becomes a chaos. It becomes an anarchy. There are rules for family, there are rules for country, there are rules for state, there are rules for the entire world, and people grow by that. Animal kingdom, they don't have any rules. It's a chaos. They don't grow. They are just there. So that's the point. Surrender doesn't really mean loss of independence. Surrender might mean to make you more independent in one sense. It helps you to grow better, or let's say guided independence. Surrender means guided independence. No surrender means chaotic independence. It's a menace. It's an anarchy. So let's surrender to God, obey His rules, and obey His wisdom, follow His wisdom, guide your life, guide your independence, grow your consciousness, advance your consciousness, and be happy. That's what is the message of scriptures. Hare Krishna.